100-word summary of all the ways Raazu died last session.
You were denied your early Christmas present.
Yeah, and so you decided to be a salty bastard about it.
To be fair, you're the pirate. You're the salty bastard.
Stabbing 100 times.
Dun, 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 dun.
That's his new thing. We just all have to live with it.
I like it.
I feel like that's been his thing for a while.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Thank you.
It's fine.
I'm still mad at Brick Road for making a hard-on joke 3 times last session.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Okay,
So
does anybody have a summary of, like, game-relevant actions? This doesn't speak well for me as a storyteller that the only thing people remember is that I made dick jokes during the session.
No.
We jokes the last session.
We had a boarding party, and then Red stole a necklace that you didn't see coming for some reason.
Yeah, we kind of brought.
I remember that necklace.
Kind of blindsided you with that.
I'm blonde, okay?
Okay.
I get it.
I got it.
Then we fought on a boat, and Raazu ran up heroically, saved Red's life, and then promptly died.
That's right. That's how I roll.
Windy, you took the mass of tentacles and the metal holy symbol, yes?
Mm-hmm. I thought one was kind of wrapped around the other.
Well, you wrapped them both up in a cloak.
Yes,
because
that's right.
This
Now I
guy,
remember.
the old priest, was loaded down with blankets, and you took one and wrapped it up because you didn't want to touch them.
Yes.
Yes, because taking like objects that obviously belong to elder things always ends well.
In the
Are
aftermath
you
of the
telling
battle,
me that you're not curious?
A little bit, yeah.
in the aftermath of the battle, Captain Eyes comes out of the forecastle on the Deceit, and he looks a little exhausted. You can see that he's been expending his energy keeping these magics up. He has calcine on his arm, and as soon as he steps out, you feel the winds start to pick up a little bit over the sea. And Captain Eyes comes out and declares victory over the Blue Nixie. And cheers go up amongst the men of the Deceit. He says that he's decided to scuttle the ship to send a clear message across these waters as to what becomes of those who would attack the allies of the Deceit. So your job now is to go over to the Blue Nixie, gather up all of its stores and treasure, bring it aboard the Deceit, and then sink the vessel. Any survivors aboard the Nixie are to be put to the sword.
Okay. Maybe I shouldn't have put the fire out last time.
Well, you needed time to gather things up.
Also, to be fair, we were on the boat while it was on fire.
Yeah, I didn't like that. I didn't like being on the boat while it was on fire.
So, 2 questions. First of all, are all of you going to aid in this effort to complete raiding the ship, or do one or more of you have business to attend to on the Deceit instead?
I think I'm going to make sure that this magic shit is secured because it's probably up to no good.
Secure how?
I would think that the ship's alchemist, wizard, and thaumaturge might have something that could keep it safe.
Okay, so you're going to bring the holy symbol and the massive tentacles to Rhodos?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And what about the rest of you?
I mean,
Adrex is in a killing mood.
Oh, there's still a few survivors aboard the Blue Nixie,
Oh, let's go killing.
begging for mercy.
where's Raazu's body?
Right now, it's where it lay.
Oh. Well,
Do you spend time recovering the body?
yeah.
Okay.
I'll carry her body
All
back.
right,
to the-
if Birdie is recovering Raazu's body, then Adrex would help with that.
What about
He's gonna
Red
gain her
and
strength.
Woo? One of Noakes' 4 bugbears is apparently a level 5 barbarian and has been this whole time.
Red is going to go into the areas on the ship he wasn't in because of the trolls. So
Okay.
the forecastle of their ship.
And by the time Red gets to them, these places have already been thoroughly looted and ransacked.
Mm-hmm.
Make a medicine check.
Freaking landlubbers in their
So
forecastle.
20, 2?
Are you trained in medicine? No, not.
No.
Obviously not if you don't have +2. Okay. In the captain's quarters aboard the Blue Nixie, you see the captain laying dead on his mattress. The room's not quite as opulent as Captain Eyes is on the Deceit. And at first glance, you're thinking, oh, he must have been killed in the fighting. And you turn your attention to the room. But then you notice there's like a flowery odor in the air. And you turn back to the captain, and you realize that like floral potpourri has been set out. Under the bed, where you expect to find like the captain's bedpan, you find some measure of this sweet-smelling, flowery, kind of mulchy substance instead. And you realize that the captain has been laying dead here for much, much longer than the fight.
Mm-hmm.
And someone was trying to cover it up. Does anybody in the... This is my second big question. In the course of taking the treasure and stores from the Blue Nixie, does anybody try to skim? Is anybody trying to pocket it for themselves? The way it's supposed to work is it's all supposed to go into a big pile and then to be doled out fairly amongst the crew.
The ruby stone was destroyed when the ghost showed up, right?
When the ghost was
red
killed,
stone.
the stone shattered.
Yeah.
It's all just gemstones and coins, right?
Not a lot in raw coin, but I mean they were carrying cargo that is worth money. There are some valuable art objects. If you decide you want to rummage for yourself, I'll have you roll on my table here to figure out what you find, and then it's your job to make sure nobody finds out you have it.
Yeah. Adrex is too distraught at the moment.
Okay. There were two other, actually 5 other casualties of the fighting. 2 deaths. Amvag the orc and Sokka the kobold that got kicked out of the kitchen so Wendy could have a job. Died during the fighting. And there were 3 serious wounds. 2 of the bugbears, one of which suffered many, many zombie bites. And then one of the orcs has part of his head caved in, but is still somehow blinking and moving around.
That sucks.
You guys recover the bodies, recover as much of the Nixie's valuable cargo as you can. Nobody's trying to pocket anything.
No.
Okay.
Nah.
The 3 dead bodies are to be stored for now in the surgery to be prepped for burial at sea tomorrow. Keeping dead bodies aboard the vessel is verboten.
Seems reasonable. What with undead about?
Adrex,
Yes, sir.
while you're in the surgery, Noakes comes in, and he has this very stern look on his face. And he looks at his dead, one of which was no, none of his bugbears died. One of the orcs died. He didn't like the orcs anyway.
I mean, nobody likes orcs.
He asks whether Raazu kept to the gods of her horde.
Would Adrex know that? Did Raazu ever talk
I'll
about
leave that up to Adrex. Raazu's made no secret over the campaign that she was a follower of Maglubiet.
But once she had left, once she had been basically abandoned by, she felt very abandoned by Maglubiet after the after all the prison and torture and whatnot. So she's been feeling very adrift.
Then Adrex would
And she's made a
explain all
secret of that.
So yeah, it's up to Adrex how much of that he was paying attention to. I've read his blog, so I know like how much attention he pays to the details of his companions sometimes.
Yeah, Adrex would go into detail about that stuff.
Gwu.
Yo,
The 4 bugbears aboard the vessel, 2 of which were wounded during the attacks. One of them, Koos, has a mangled hand, and Hrolk was brought down by zombies and suffered many bites before you and the other bugbears managed to beat them all off. The original intent of these bugbears was that they are loyal men of the ship, but they are also Nox's loyal men in particular. So your decision is that a fair assessment of the situation? Is Gwu one of Nox's men?
yeah.
Okay. Here's what you know, then. Why don't you follow me over into...
Secret chat?
Yeah, over into the private chat for a minute.
Sure. Hi.
Okay, so here's
So we're
some
like-
story stuff that wasn't going to come up until later this session, but you kind of have a jump on it. The primary port of call that your ship goes back to resupply and recrew after major hauls like this one is called Kovnos Volexath. This is a...
Kovnos
Volexath. It's a pirate's cove. It sits on a peninsula, a very heavily forested peninsula that is impenetrable from land and virtually impenetrable by sea. This is a free haven for pirates. They have very strict rules about drawing or bearing weapons within the town, and it is governed by a democratic council of 6 pirate captains, and it's been that way for decades.
Okay. So it's Kovnos Volex.
Kovnos Volexath. In the language of Tritons, it means Bay of the Skinned Triton.
Cool.
All men are equal in the Kovnos, but men with gold are more equal.
Fair enough.
Tritons and other aquatic races are not allowed. If they are caught inside, they are killed on sight, and the approach that the sharp shoals and little rocky islands that lay out to sea from the Kovnos, many of these areas have structures that are covered in the dried skins of these creatures, the dried skins and scales of Tritons. One of these 6 counselors, and we're going to go into this in detail later in the session, so I'm not going to do it right now, but one of the 6 counselors is very old and very well loved. And what Gwu knows is that Ned Noakes has designs on becoming captain of the Deceit.
Okay.
He has great love and admiration for Captain Eyes and would never betray him. What he's going to do, though, what he's been trying to do, is set a plan into motion that when this seat opens up on the council, to get overwhelming support to place Captain Eyes in the chair, so much so that Captain Eyes could not refuse. This would leave the Deceit open for a new captain, and Noakes wants to step into that role.
Okay.
As far as anybody knows, though, Captain Eyes has no designs on politics. He wants to be out at sea, and this is causing Noakes a great amount of anxiety. To what degree that Gwu is involved in this plot is up to you. Everything from, I'll just do what Noakes tells me, I like to smash things, all the way up to having political designs yourself. That's all on you.
No, that means that Gwu would probably be jockeying for Captain Noakes' quartermaster job.
So What is Guu's outlook on these absolutely insane new crewmen that the captain took on? Noakes is completely exasperated by them.
Should have deep sixed them when they came on board.
All right. I'm not going to tell anybody you said that.
All right.
Okay, we're going to go back now.
All right.
Well, that's the point. So.
Okay, plotting has happened.
Hi guys. Hi guys.
This is fine.
Nothing suspicious here.
Not
Don't worry about me.
Not even a little bit.
So the next day, that night, Adrex.
Yeah. Adrex would have also mentioned, I don't know if Yashnars is there. Raazu was interested in finding out about Osprey. Never had the opportunity.
You actually don't have a lot of time to talk with Yashnars about that kind of stuff, because you have little, 3 very serious wounds to deal with aboard the ship. 2 of the bugbears. You can see that Yashnar usually is very neutral amongst men of the ship. He's loyal to the ship, but it's difficult usually to get a read on whether or not he has any particular like for a particular person. But when this bugbear shows up, covered in zombie bites, delivered by his 3 companions, one of which has a hand that needs to be repaired. Make me a medicine check for this hand.
If you rolled a 1, we could always put a hook on there.
Nice. Yeah, that was the intent. So when Koos shows up with a mangled hand, I mean, Yashnar's first appraisal is that it's not a fatal wound, but it's likely that the hand will be crippled and wouldn't be able to hold a weapon. Adrex is like, nope, 2-0, man. So you managed to get the bone.
That's what he says, and Yashnars doesn't get it.
You get this hand bandaged up. Adrex does it while perching. It's amazing.
Adrex does the healing touch from Trauma Center. Fixes it.
Woo. You and the remaining bugbear, after you deliver your 2 wounded companions, I rolled randomly to see which of the crewmen aboard the ship were injured, and it's just bugbears. It just wasn't their day.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yashnar's kind of shuffles the 2 of you out. Do you go?
Yeah.
Okay. After the other 2 bugbears are out, you get Koos's hand set. Hrolk, the bugbear that's been partially devoured by zombies, is unconscious. Koos gets dosed up on whatever good opiates Yashnars has lying around. He's given 1 day of bed rest before he's back to work. Once the 2 of you are alone with the unconscious bugbear, Yashnars tells you that saving this man's life is possible, but not desirable. Given the wounds he was taken, it's very likely that he will be infected, and that there will be repercussions as far as the undead.
Well, we still have to try to save him. I mean, all right, if he's infected, he's infected. We'll deal with that when that becomes a problem. But right now, we have to try to do something.
Yashnars considers this for a moment. And then he says that, because you've told him stories of your adventures. Is that correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He says that very recently, and in the past, you have a lot of experience of facing down moving corpses. You've seen these terrors face to face. You bear their wounds. Even knowing the blight that is undeath, you would still try to save this man?
Yeah.
He nods once. Says, very well. Let's get to work. Make a medicine check for Hrolk. Actually, first make a either religion or arcana check.
I think I've got zeros on both of those. Yep. Three.
Okay. Now make a medicine check.
So, 11.
Okay. Most of the wounds look superficial. There are only a couple of major ones. You're able to suck out some of the rancid pus. You're able to cut away some of the necrotic flesh. Get his arm and his torso bound. And seems stable. Still unconscious.
What? And this is Adrex talking to Yashnars. What are the chances of him becoming reanimated? Because here's the... Adrex hasn't talked to Yashnars about his god, so Adrex will just keep that secret just for a little while longer.
Keeping secrets always ends well.
Yeah.
The last wounded... so the Hrolk the Bugbear is sent back to the crew quarters. Bandaged as well as he could be. And the last patient is Drunner the Orc. Drunner's not unconscious, but his bell has definitely been rung. He has this grimace on his face. He's kind of just staring off into space. His eyes have difficulty focused. Half of his head has just been stoved in with some extremely heavy weapon or implement. And this is when you get to see Yashnars work his actual magic. When he lays his hands upon Drunner's head and he speaks a prayer to Osbrum. And the smell of fresh fish and sea foam fills the room. And you see the brain matter in Drunner's head stitched together and the skull rebind and calcify and the skin scab over. And Drunner, still staring into space in slurred speech, says, well, when are you going to get started?
Adrex raises an eyebrow.
And you don't have to do anything as far as his orc. With that, Yashnars gives him some of the good drugs and sends him back. After he's gone, Yashnars pontificates that Drunner will not be good for much other than swabbing decks afterwards, but aboard a ship like this, unintelligent muscle has its place.
Hey.
And so ends Adrex's exhausting night, patching and stitching people up.
Did Yashnars ever answer my question, though? What are the chances of him actually turning?
Oh, I thought you said you weren't saying that. He doesn't know the chances. He has a lot of religious knowledge about these kinds of creatures, and the area where he was born, far to the west of the continent, there is great influence of the Shadowfell, and undead are much more common. So he's mostly going off of stories and superstitions that he's heard, of encountering vessels filled with dead men like that. The way he basically leaves it is, if this bugbear turns, it falls to you to not hesitate with your blade.
Oh. Yeah, that won't be a problem. Adrex says melancholy-ish, with melancholy.
Are Red, Birdie, or Windy doing anything else the night that the ship is, the Blue Nixie is scuttered?
No, except for... No, I don't think so.
So you just delivered the materials to Rhodos. Okay.
Yeah.
The next day, early morning, the call goes out, all hands on deck. It's a very solemn occasion as the three bodies covered in blankets on the edge of the ship One of the other orcs says a prayer in Orcish for his dead comrade. One of the kobolds does the same for Sokka. And how religious is Gwu?
Probably fairly religious.
Okay. Then you're told, and yeah, this is a fucked up thing for a DM to do, but full speed ahead, buddy. Noakes tells Gwu that he's been informed that Raazu keeps 2 Maglubiets and that you should eulogize her. He says keep it short, though. The men had no love for her.
Gru just says that her blade was sharp and her tenacity in battle was sharper. And that's basically all he has to say. He doesn't really get too deep because he's never met this lady. He doesn't know what she's about.
Okay.
But he's not like actively spitting on her corpse or anything like that. But
No, Noakes is doing that, though. No, and then there's 3 splashes as the bodies are dumped into the ocean. Then there's a moment of silence on deck before the captain rings out and says that the ship now makes for the Kovnos to spend our treasure and replenish our crew. And at that, there is a great positive murmuring and some cheering amongst the crew, as shore leave is in their future. And those of you who are on a nighttime shift are retired for the day. Birdie and Red.
Mm-hmm.
I want you guys to each make a perception check.
Uh,
18.
23.
Okay. In the previous night, both of you noticed during the chaos, the treasure being accumulated, a small cache of scrolls was delivered to Rhodos, who is the wizard, alchemist, and thaumaturge aboard the vessel. One of the no-name pirates came into possession of them and turned them over to the alchemist. And after a few days of sailing, the treasure has been accounted for, broken down into coin, and paid out to the crew the day before you're set to arrive at the Kovnos. Windy and Adrex. You're each entitled to 1.5 shares of the treasure, which for you two breaks down to 150 gold and 3 silver. Birdie, you're entitled to 1 share of the treasure, which is 100 gold and 2 silver. Red, you're entitled to 0 shares of the treasure because you tried to break into the ship the first day you were there. In addition, kind of as a collective, as a group, you are all paid 225 gold, 4 silver, and 5 copper. That is Raazu's take, plus 50%. As paid to her next of kin. To be split up however you desire, or sent back to her family, or whatever she would have wanted done with it.
Birdie cries and says, "We'll use it to kill lots of random orcs."
Buy like a sword. But like a cool sword.
What do you guys do with Raazu's equipment?
I mean, I think all the good stuff the pirates already took, right?
They took her trident. That's the only thing of hers they took.
We still have her plate mail and her halberd. Like, she threw her javelins into the ocean, so...
Yeah, let me bring up Raazu's character sheet.
That was convenient, to be honest.
Like, we're going to shore leave,
Are they
right?
expecting us to get rid of this trash right now, or like? Can
As
we?
far as they're
I think
concerned,
honestly, the thing that we would probably do with it is, or at least the thing Wendy would probably do with it, is say we should bring it back to the Moakton. They had need a medal.
talking about her
We're going-
armor and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Okay. Yeah, as far as the ship is concerned, they're your belongings now. Raazu has no more need of them. You can keep them or give them away or relinquish them to the ship stores for coin or whatever you want to do with them.
We could... I wonder if the thaumaturge would trade it for some scrolls.
Do you ask him?
Yeah. It's like, hey, would you take this armor for a couple of scrolls?
So after having a conversation with Red and Windy about delivering this plate armor to the Moakton, Birdie's going to be like, that doesn't sit well with me. So aboard the ship, they don't have any use for plate armor, but the metal itself does have value, and if you sold it back to the stores, the armor could be melted down and made into tools and weapons. That couldn't be done aboard the vessel, but it could be done at a forge on shore. As for scrolls, if you ask Rhodos about them, he does confirm that 3 scrolls were found amongst the Blue Nixie's treasure, and that he has already properly appraised their value, and each man was given a portion of that coin. But the scrolls themselves went to the captain.
Okay.
When speaking with Rhodos, though, you see one of his tables. He always has these tables piled high with research materials, tools, and decanters bubbling away, notes and inkwells and things. Almost an entire section of table has been completely cleared off, and he has a roll of greenish-yellow parchment rolled out, pinned down to the table on each corner, and laid out very gingerly on top of this parchment, you see the metal holy symbol that has this strange swooping design that he's been analyzing, delivered to him by Wendy.
I don't know. I think you should probably keep that in a box. That seems slightly evil.
Yeah, you suggest that to him?
Yeah. Like, okay, listen. I suggested we kept the evil necklace in a box, and I got ignored, and Red lost his backpack. So I'm just saying.
Oh, right. So, Red, what was in your backpack that you no longer have because it got blown overboard when it exploded?
Alright, so the items that were lost were a backpack, a bell, a candle, back, a bell, a candle, here we go. A hammer, a hooded lantern, 2 flasks of oil, 2 days trail rations, a water skin, and a set of heavy winter clothes.
Okay.
So what of Raazu's effects are you taking, guys?
I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. As far as Wendy's concerned, do you have anything interesting in there?
Yeah, you said you linked your character sheet?
Yeah, I linked it. Can you not?
Yeah, let me look
see
at that.
the-
Because as far as
Right.
Wendy's concerned, we put it in a box, we bring it back to the Moakton. Unless I'm
I don't know that-
about to look in here and see, like, sweet sword.
Yeah, I don't know that there's actually anything here worth bringing back to a village that's already pretty much...
Wendy's gonna take the potion of healing. That's the only thing I give a shit about.
I'll grab the charlatan die then.
Okay. All right, that's off my character sheet. Potion healing's going away.
And I'll also take your water skin since I lost mine.
Water scan is gone.
Yeah, I used mine bringing you back to life for a second, so I feel like that's a fair trade.
Birdie, do you take one of Raazu's boots?
I only do that to people I don't like.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you like
So-
Raazu. That's
Well, do you take one of Raazu's boots?
Birdie is incredibly sad Raazu is dead, okay?
I'm going to take Raazu's blips. Ha ha ha. No.
Wait, can I take
Why
Raazu's
not?
blips?
no.
What is-
Nobody can take. Gwu can't even take Raazu's blips.
What?
That's right.
All right. What was your mundane magic item?
Red
What
already.
is the sharp-
Red already took that.
Oh, you know what?
Hmm.
Adrex will take the whip.
Okay.
I'm very uncomfortable now.
I need an adult.
Birdie's just getting his ass beat by Adrex, and Adrex is crying. Just this is what Raazu would have wanted.
I'll take Raazu's dark vision.
Sorry.
I'll also grab that rope. I always use more rope.
Rope is beleated.
So anything other than those items, you guys are going to deliver back to the Moakton?
Is that really worth the effort? I feel like we could just leave it on the ship. I feel like a village already has most of this stuff.
I mean, yeah, we could just leave it on the ship for now.
Okay. So
So the plate armor and the chain you're gonna leave.
No, those we specifically are bringing back to the Moakton. I think the rest of your mundane gear isn't necessarily all that worthwhile.
if you guys want to nickel and
you
dime
want
it,
a
anything you're giving back to the ship, just go ahead and turn into, let's say, 70% of the PHB value in the book that you're paid out.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That
I'll
stuff is
take it
added to the
back.
ship scores. And after 2 days of sailing, in the distance, C calls out that Kovnos Volexath is in range of vision. The Kovnos sits on a forested peninsula in the far east of the continent, kind of to the south of where the Council of Akka was, where you took Windy and found that big cool feather.
Yeah, I remember that feather.
This peninsula is impenetrable from the north. The forests are too thick, the terrain is too rocky, it's filled with dangerous monsters, and from the south, for miles and miles out, there are dangerous, virtually invisible, sharp, rocky shoals that are extremely difficult to sail through. So right in the middle of these two geographic features was founded the Kovnos, which is a free association of pirates. Gwu is the only one who knows much of anything in detail about the Kovnos, because it was determined that none of you had sailor backgrounds or had lived on the sea before. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
During the 2 days you're sailing here, you hear great stories about the Kovnos. Because at first you're thinking, like, every man on the ship got about 100 gold or more from that take. That's a lot of money for a deckhand to spend at shore. But you're assured in no short order that it's very easy for a man to live an excellent week of leave in the Kovnos on 100 gold. You get the impression that most of these deckhands will be back on the Deceit, penniless, when it goes back out to sea. Approaching the Kovnos. Coming into view. So you guys are a couple hundred feet away from this area. You can see where the entrance to the actual cove itself has been dammed off. There are several ships moored out to sea. There's no like large docks. Travel to and from the Kovnos is done by longboat. Who's on deck during the day?
Gwu.
Gwu? The procedure, Gwu, goes like this.
Mhm.
Orcs in this guard tower upon seeing a vessel approach the Kovnos and mooring off the shore, fire an arrow at the ship. It's somebody's job to retrieve this arrow from wherever it hits the hull and deliver it to either the ship's captain or the quartermaster. At that point, Gru doesn't know what happens. Something, something, something. An hour later, the men aboard the ship are given leave to enter Kovnos.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody is in charge of returning that arrow to the orcs. This is your job to either do or delegate as you see fit.
I'll fetch the arrow when they fire it and take it to the Noakes.
Okay. Roll some percentile die. Let's see what this arrow hits.
Good news, Birdie. Adrex is proficient at whip.
The die that fell off is 10s.
Okay.
Ought to.
Ought to. The arrow hits one of the masts of the ship.
Mm-hmm.
Gru climbs up and takes it, and it looks like a standard arrow, except there's a spiral of runic scripts around the shaft. And the arrowhead is made out of a material that you've never encountered in any other place. It's not quite metal, but it's not quite stone, and it's definitely not wood. And you have no idea what it is. You've never seen anything else made out of this mineral before.
Except maybe these self-same arrows that you might have retrieved in the past. Pulling in
exactly. That's the only other time you've seen them. And you turn it over to Noakes.
Yep.
Okay.
It's magic shit.
And after an hour or so, Noakes brings the arrow back to you. If you don't return this arrow to these orcs, a 200 gold fine is levied against the vessel. And Captain Eyes will probably be happy to pay it, but it will be coming out of your salary.
Yeah, okay. Am I actually proficient? Yeah, I'm proficient with a longbow.
Yeah, you're a barbarian. You're proficient in goddamn everything.
But I don't actually have a long.
I mean, you can purchase one from the ship stores if Gru wants a longbow. When he says return the arrow to the orcs, he doesn't mean fire it back. He means when you get into the Kovnos, take it to the guardhouse.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
you could fire it back if you just want to be a smartass about it.
I didn't know that was the procedure or not, but okay, now that I know this, alright. I will do so.
That would probably earn some respect from amongst the men, but of course if you miss the shot, you're going to be diving for that arrow later.
Yep.
Red and Birdie. The two of you are asleep for the day when there is a loud and hurried commotion amongst the various kobolds and goblins, amongst the crew, the other day sleepers, that you've arrived at the Kovnos, and they're all going to go and blow all of their money on drugs and prostitutes and lots of drink.
That sounds like fun.
Adrex.
That's me.
Yashnars asks you how much experience you have foraging in the woods.
And that's Adrex's response.
He doesn't understand what you mean by...
It's kind of my thing.
He says that that's excellent, and he asks if he could impose upon you for a day or two during your leave to go with him into the woods and for certain materials that he needs to restock, herbs and things.
Yeah.
He looks relieved when you agree to this. This is definitely not his strong point, and having somebody on hand who actually knows what they're looking for and looking at, he thinks is going to be a great help. And Windy.
Yeah.
Sweetie Bird, very uncharacteristically and almost certainly insincerely,
Yeah.
compliments you on all the great help you've been over the past few weeks in the kitchen,
Yeah.
and that it's been a great boon to have somebody who knows their way around. And also, she doesn't have quite enough money to replenish the spices and supplies and things at Kovnos, and is wondering if you'd be willing to chip in.
Which spices are these?
As she rattles off the names of some rare and exotic spices, the likes of which make their way to Kovnos from time to time.
And Wendy kind of flutters the feathers on her back and says, "Oh no, I'm sorry, I don't know how to cook with those."
And then, kind of patting herself on the back, she gives you a kind of a self-congratulatory, like, "Don't worry, you don't need to know how to use these. I know how to use them, and the things that I'll do with them will be excellent and delicious."
Huh. I don't know. That's weird, because if I buy some spices, I would want to be cooking with them. If only there was someone who could teach me how to use these spices, then I could get you them for you.
Make a persuasion check at advantage.
Like outweigh her greed for spices versus her dislike of Wendy.
That's 17.
17. Sweetie Bird very grudgingly agrees to show you the proper means of using these materials if you chip in to help purchase them.
Sure.
There are various types of meats and exotic island jungle fruits and things that she wants to procure while she's here, to the tune of about 50 gold.
Yeah, Wendy barely knows what money is, so that's fine.
I really want Nodal's next character to be a hardcore mercantile penny pincher.
Well, see, that's the problem. Is that was Eldov.
No, Eldov spent money like water. He didn't know what money was in the other direction.
That's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah, no, I've been rewatching old Flumph, and yeah, no.
That's fair. That's fair.
Eldov was many things, and Flippant was one of them.
All right. And yeah, people start making their way into the Kovnos over the course of the day. Like I said, there's no docks offshore. They don't allow ships to moor close by. But you see some of the more skilled deckhands are able to just literally climb down the hull of the ship and make their way across some of these shoals and sandbars, going in towards the cove. None of you are asked to remain aboard the vessel. Noakes and Aldosh are both asked to remain for now, as the captain and Calcine head into town. So it is early morning. Let's go ahead and get some morning actions. What is Birdie's intent for his first morning of shore leave?
What kind of services are available in this town?
Who do you think to get
Besides
that
booze
information
and
from?
alcohol and whores.
I mean, that's most of what your crew is interested in, is booze and alcohol and whores. Especially Birdie being down in the crew quarters with just the...
Kobolds.
Yeah, just the kobolds and goblins and bugbears and whatnot.
I mean...
There is one shop Birdie is perhaps interested in. You hear of an old bearded kobold in town named Dimnisap. And some of the men are going to be paying a visit to Dimnisap because, like you, they purchased just little trinkets and curiosities from the butt pirates. And not often, but every once in a while, one of those little trinkets turns out to be magical. And the man who knows is Dimnisap. He is a master of identifying magical items, or so he says. Dimity Sap lives in this house here. He has kind of the largest estate in town. And he lives there alone, except for a pretty young maidservant named Ali.
Just saying, Raazu does have a butt pirate trinket in her personal effects.
Okay. Well,
Oh, no,
grabbed
she
Raazu-
doesn't. One of the other crewmen who was helping carry the body were pocketed that.
Oh,
I'm not
okay,
giving
then.
one of these guys 2 butt pirate trinkets.
All right,
Oh, wait,
then
Red
I
didn't
will-
have one, did he? Because he wasn't... Destil wasn't here that
Yeah,
second.
he
was
wasn't
in
here
jail.
that week.
Yeah, Destil, you can have a butt pirate trinket to be determined at a point. It's a non-magical trinket that you can determine at a point in the future.
Not magically.
But yeah, other than that, there are exactly what you'd expect from like a little Tortuga kind of pirate shanty town. Lots of illicit pleasure houses and smoke houses. There's upscale saloons for officers. There's rowdy pit fighting to be had. And there's miles and miles of adjacent fields and wilderness as well.
I don't know. I don't really have any plans. Like,
Okay.
I just wander around, looking around.
What is Adrex doing on this first morning?
When does Yashnars want to go hunting? Scavenging?
Not this first day. This first day,
First
he's going to
day.
go and drink quite a lot and probably smoke something and maybe get his dick wet.
It's the only way he gets to keep his cleric powers.
That's right.
All right. Sorry, I'm looking at the map and I just like the arrows that say trap on them.
Yeah, I like that too. And I thought, like, I could just erase that, but I also really like the idea that there are just traps everywhere because there's so many kobolds in this little pirate cove.
But they're like really obvious traps. Like if you get trapped by them, that's on you.
They just
What?
leave you dangling there for 3 days because they think it's funny if you get...
So you said there's like upscale saloons and stuff, right?
Yeah, and one of the places that Yashnars is planning to attend, because he and you both get a little more than the standard crewman aboard the Deceit. The place he's going to go is the Royal Slipper Saloon, which is D6 here, and it sits right next to, adjacent to Mom's Boarding. This is a 3-story boarding house. This is where Yashnars is planning to stay while on shore. The saloon is a very posh public house, popular amongst officers and those who can pay upscale prices. Yashnars is particularly fond of the 12 GP per glass Dwarven Stout that they sell.
That is what Adrex is interested in.
All right. For breakfast?
Yeah.
Okay.
Stuff
What is Gwu doing his first morning of shore leave?
Go to Noakes and see if he has any business that he needs taken care of immediately, aside from the arrow.
Okay. We're not going to make you take a morning action to deliver the arrow. You can just stop in and do it there.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
This building towards the back of town, kind of on the edge of this wilderness.
Mm-hmm.
Out behind that, there are miles and miles of fields that are worked.
Mm-hmm.
What do they grow? That's an excellent question. I thought I had that information here.
Dirt.
Mostly dirt, yeah. Hops,
Dirt farmers?
corn, tobacco, and pumpkins,
Well, of course.
predominantly. A very eclectic match of crops.
Not when you consider Pirate Town.
The man that owns the land is named Bosun Bob.
Mm-hmm.
He's a large, purple-skinned Goliath with a crooked neck and a hoarse cough. And he owns all these plots of land. And he claims to have connections with Fey spirits who bless the land so he can grow out of season and all manner of crops regardless of time of year and keep his land fertile and strong. The land is farmed with indentured servants. Crimes against the Cove that aren't egregious enough to merit death, and typically with a big fine that most men can't pay, so they work the fine off by working Bo's and Bob's land. So captains with unruly sailors will sometimes come here and sell them to Bo's and Bob for a period of time. Captains will also come here and buy the debt of people working under Bo's and Bob to bring sailors back out to sea. So that's one thing that Noakes is going to have to do. He's got 3 hands he needs to replace.
Okay.
Is that what you're doing right away when you step off the boat?
That sounds like a plan, yeah.
What is Red doing?
Red's mostly just going to investigate the town, find out if there's any rumors or anything, and try and get the rest of the group to try and find a place where he thinks that his group can meet out of earshot of anybody else and talk, probably for tomorrow.
Okay. Are you going to stick with Birdie, who's also kind of wandering around investigating, or are you going to split up from Birdie?
I'll split up.
Okay.
And cover more ground that way.
And what is Windy doing?
When are we going spice hunting?
There's not going to be like an actual shop or kitchen that you're going to be buying spices from. Probably you'll be buying a lot of goods from Bo's and Bob. But other than that, you'll probably just be kind of schmoozing with other vessels from other areas of the seas who've come here to sell their cargo.
That sounds interesting. I think I'll go do that.
Okay.
I'm not super interested in going to the brothel ever since that Fey one we went to. Once you go fairy, you never go Larry.
Who the hell is Larry?
Just, you know, one of the guys at the brothel.
We know he's not a fairy, that's for sure.
Should have said Harry. Once you go fairy, you never go Harry.
Yeah, that would have been
That's a lot funnier.
Yeah.
Also,
Red's
a
not
little more
taken.
offensive.
A little more.
But it's like
Just
it's
a
like
little bit.
It's like a good offensive, like a little hurt, just kind of
Just a little bit.
like a little pinch. Splash of hot sauce on that joke. Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
You're all terrible people. You know
We
that,
forgive
right?
you, Phil.
So, Birdie, your goal is just to kind of take in what all's here.
Yeah.
Red, make me a charisma investigation check.
Okay. 18.
18. Red.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't a secret. This is something that all of you know within a few minutes of stepping into the town. But this big vessel, this kind of crooked-looking, half-wrecked vessel in the center of town has been restored, so it's very livable and actually very comfortable. And structures have kind of been built on top of the decks. It's called the Wreck of the Damned Minnow. And these are the remnants of two legendary pirate ships, the Damned Minnow and the Sixth Lust. You learn that the Cove is governed by a council of, like a democratic council of retired pirate captains. They sit in 6 chairs and they meet around a round table. This is a arrangement that's been in place for decades. They have very strict rules about disallowing the bearing of weapons while inside the Kovnos.